Welcome to a discussion, a very special discussion on cassava-based products for exportation. We actually be focusing on cassava. Now, of course, a lot of you might be scratching your heads. You probably know it best as manioc. And of course, there are a lot of other names it goes into when it's processed. We'll get into all that with a couple of industry insiders. Now, of course, we are talking about this because of a mega-scale green investment initiative started by Sri Lankan government that is connected with, of course, foreign-based governments and foreign-based organizations, which will actually develop the cassava industry in Sri Lanka. Now, before we get into the project we're going to be talking about and all the specific details, I have to introduce who we've brought onto the studio. Today we have two very important people. Now, they're both connected with this particular initiative, and we have Mr. Andreas Wilk. He's the Managing Director of Starch Industries, and we have Jörgen Larsson. He's the main project partner of Starch Industries and this new initiative. Of course, now I told your name, the company's name, Starch Industries. So can you guys tell us a little bit about this project, what you have started?
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to talk to you. We started this initiative actually 5 years ago, based on a presence in Sri Lanka since 10 years. We have seen that there's a vast potential in the agriculture industry, and especially in the organic agriculture industry, which is our main focus. And previously, we ran the largest cassava or manioc plantation in Sri Lanka, comprising of 300 acres. And we saw that there's a huge potential for the cassava cultivation in the country, and it's being cultivated almost everywhere. But you lack the opportunity to process the cassava and make value-added products. And there has also been a situation where farmers, they cultivate the cassava, but they are unable to sell it because there's oversupply of the roots itself in the local market. And the opportunity for exporting the fresh roots is limited. So that's when we realized that there's a potential here to set up a factory to process the cassava roots, or tubers, which are also called, into value-added products. And the main product that we're emphasizing is the starch from cassava, called cassava starch or tapioca starch, which is actually the mostly used name.
Of course, now tapioca is a very brand new term, I think, for a lot of the Sri Lankan viewers. Now, both of you, I believe, before coming into this project, has done extensive research into the industry. And Andreas, if I'm not mistaken, you have been in Sri Lanka for quite a while. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I actually started doing business in Sri Lanka just after the civil war ended, almost 10 years ago. And we have been involved in different fruit and vegetables related projects. And everything we have done is organic and focusing on sustainability. And my background is within business and finance, but also within CSR. CSR means corporate social responsibility. So we always seek for win-win situations, win for the shareholders and the company, of course, but also for the local people and the communities, and at the same time take care of the environment and minimize the impact that we cause to the environment while we're building up businesses and doing agriculture.
Now, Jörgen, of course, you haven't spoken yet. Jörgen, how did you become involved in the project, and how did you come to Sri Lanka to start this project?
Yeah, well, in this project we got involved some years ago, and Andreas called us and asked for a budget quotation to have some figures to do the calculation, and that's how it started. And I came here the first time, it's about a year and a half ago, together with another company, and also looking into the starch industry here to set up plans. But it never turned out anything yet. But now starch industry is going to realize it, and I feel excited.
By the way, Jörgen, you just arrived in Sri Lanka as well, right?
Yes.
Hopefully you don't have any jet lag and everything's out of the way.
Yeah, no, not really. I came from the Philippines because I've been there for 2 weeks participating in commissioning of a similar factory in Mindanao, the southern island.
Oh.
So I came directly from this factory to here yesterday.
So you have a lot of experience in the field.
Yeah, but our company, it's a family company. It was founded by my father in 1948. And we have since that only been producing and developing manufacturing machines and complete process lines for the starch industry. And
Can
today
you
we are
expand on
worldwide
what your factory
supplier.
does? A little?
Excuse me?
Can you expand a little bit about what your factory does?
Yeah, what we supply the whole process line. So in fact, what we do, we receive the roots from the farmer, we clean them, wash them, and then we extract the starch, separate the different components, the fibers, the fruit water, and then we dewater and dry the starch into powder.
Okay.
And
so
then
you provide
there are two incoming. We put in water and roots, and we get starch, fibers, and processed water.
So you supply all the technologies and product lines.
The whole entire line, yeah. And
All right.
the control system, automation, and things like that.
And the reason why we select to work with Larsson is that they are by far the most experienced and skilled supplier of this kind of machinery. So when we launch this in Sri Lanka, it's with a state-of-the-art technology that will last for 30, 40 years. And it's highly automated. And you know, if you invest heavily in a project, you need to rely on the technology and machinery. And that's why we select to work with Larsson.
Work with the best.
Work with the best, absolutely.
All right. So Andreas, I think you have done extensive research on the field before
Yeah.
you get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, businesses are based on research and, of course, who you get involved with, as you mentioned. Now, according to your research, what's the industry like in Sri Lanka for cassava?
It's a root that has been grown almost everywhere, as I mentioned, in the country, and it's used for staple food. You
Yeah.
cook it and you eat it like potato, and you also make chips.
Yeah.
And it can also be used as animal feed. But in order to really utilize the potential, you need to do some value-added process to the cassava. And what we realized is that the farmers, they have often some lands that are not cultivated, or at least they have potential to utilize some of their lands for some value crops, right? So we mapped out the different areas in Sri Lanka where we can grow cassava, which is almost everywhere, but you have some places where you have larger lands and more farmers in one area. And we also reached out to His Excellency and his team, and they advised us to go to the North Central province, and they have presented a land in Polonnaruwa called Velikanda, and that's the main site for the nucleus plantation and processing unit as well. And in this area, there are also other abandoned lands or underutilized lands, so they can also be cultivated by local farmers in an outgrowing system. So this is a very important part of the project from a supply perspective, and also from our perspective to engage the local communities and bring jobs to local farmers and also give them a more predictable income.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in farming you can do different crops. Some crops you can sell, some you cannot sell, depending on the supply and market situation in the market as of the time of harvest. Yeah. But what we bring to the farmers is that we give them a long-term agreement with a buyback guarantee, and also a system of sharing technology and methodology where they can grow up to 3 cycles without even removing the stem. So they can plant and they can do 3 harvests of cassava every 9 months.
A lot of people might be confused when you say 3
Yeah.
cycles. Can you
Yeah.
expand a little bit about that?
Yeah, normally the average cultivation time for cassava in Sri Lanka is 9 months, depending on which variety you cultivate. But we have some local experts who have been doing a lot of research in the field, and they have developed a technique that should enable the farmers to plant the stem one time, then remove the soil and take out the tubers or roots 3 times without removing the stem. And then after the 3rd time, they need to remove the stem, plant a rotation crop, because in organic farming, you need to do rotation cropping to retain the fertility in the soil. And then after the rotation cropping, then can again do a 3-cycle cassava cultivation.
All right. Now, of course, you talked a little bit about the nucleus and the abundant plots of land. Now, if there are farmers who are wanting to get in on this,
Yeah.
how would they do that?
We have a very strong cooperation with an organization called the Grama Shakti People's Movement Program. It was established by His Excellency with his extensive farming background as an initiative to develop, modernize, and effectivized the agriculture industry in Sri Lanka, and they have put several projects into a development scope. So they want to develop cassava, obviously, together with us. They also have some emphasizing projects on dairy and some other crops as well. But this will be the first of the large projects within this Grama Shakti initiative to be rolled out in Sri Lanka. And what we hope also, with the help of His Excellency and his team of experienced people, is to develop a model for the outgoing farmers based on cassava initially that can be also implemented for other crops and other types of farming.
Okay.
So it's a kind of, duplicate model.
Yeah, symbiotic kind of relationship where they give you and you give them back something as well. Of course, now I believe Jürgen might be able to answer this question. What is the reception for tapioca, especially now, of course, cassava is tapioca when it's processed. What is the reception for that in the global market?
You mean in what markets it's used?
The whole market, global market.
Oh, the global market. I think it's something like 30 million tons.
30 million tons.
Yeah.
So when you compare tapioca, say this tapioca starch, to say cornstarch or wheat starch, how is it placed?
Cornstarch is by far the biggest source for I think it's something like more than 70% of all starch produced is cornstarch. And now tapioca starch has overtaken the position as number 2. Earlier wheat starch were bigger, but today tapioca starch is it's produced more tapioca starch than wheat. And then we have the 4th big source is potato starch. Potato starch is something like 5-6% only, but it's a quite tapioca starch, potato starch, especially in the way that it has some properties that the other starches don't have, and they can gain a better price because of that.
Yeah. Now, of course, in Sri Lanka, like you said, cassava is used as an alternative to rice, and it's made like a potato salad kind of way, manioc, and we very much like to consume it. It's one of the favorite delicacies, and also the cassava chips, very popular in Sri Lanka as a snack, and I think a lot of people in Sri Lanka would love to have it in any of the places as a snack. Now, why is it that they can't be exported, or why is it disadvantageous to focus on the chips or the manioc itself rather than the tapioca?
The tapioca starch is widely used in a lot of food products, everything from sausages, meat products, gravies, soups, pastry. It's also used in paper and pulp industry, actually. So the areas of use for a starch is so huge. Whilst the chips is for human consumption, and you cannot eat chips, tapioca chips every day. This is more like a snack, as you say. So we purchase all the crops from the farmers. So some of the crops may be supplied to some local chips manufacturers as well, if they are interested. We're open for that. But the main focus is to make the starch for the global market.
Now, talking about when you procure the plant, apart from the root, what other parts of the plant can you use?
Yeah, we have an emphasis on utilizing the entire part of the plant. So the stem can be used to replant. You just chop it off and you put a small piece of the stem back in the soil, and it will grow up as a new plant. Then we take the cassava roots to make the starch, eventually also some chips. And we also are now investigating to use the leaves, dry them, crush them, and make powder and make capsules and supply as a healthy food supplement to people. Because it holds a lot of healthy properties. There are also some research indicating that the leaves and also actually tapioca itself can prevent against some forms of cancer. So it holds a lot of good and healthy properties.
A lot of health benefits in cassava.
Yeah.
So we'll expand on that in just a second. When you said, the cleaning process, I think Jürgen mentioned the whole supply chain is actually done by them, the production chain, the cleaning process is of course done by the machinery used by them. Now, of course, agricultural innovation technology is a huge field in the global market, but I think a lot of Sri Lankans, a lot of the public feels that we are lacking in that area when it comes to agricultural technologies. in Sri Lanka, even though agriculture is a huge industry that employs millions in Sri Lanka. Now, what type of technologies are being introduced? What type of innovations can help Sri Lankan communities by this project?
This project is unique in the way that it will, in fact, will produce organic starch. It's in fact the first organic tapioca starch plant I know, and that is certified as an organic producer. And the demand for organic starches are rising tremendously, and the supply is much too short, and it makes this project very beautiful because it fills in a gap where nobody has been before. And there are some few small factories in Europe producing organic potato starch, and everything is sold like that, and
So
to a
it's
very good
basically,
price as well.
What about the technology, the equipment used? Is it particularly very new to the industry itself? The Sri Lankan industry probably doesn't have that type of machinery in use right now. Can you expand a bit about that?
Yeah, well, the equipment is machines are based on my father's developing work, and he did in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and we have continuously developed the machine into bigger machines, and to meet the demands today. Today, there is a big demand for hygienically designed machines. That was not the question 10, 20 years ago. Everything has to be more and more efficient, less power consumption, low water consumption, and with a high yield so that we don't lose any starch in the byproducts. It is triggering the whole time to extract as much starch as possible out of the roots and not waste the starch into the byproducts.
Now, of course, now you mentioned you can't waste starch. You need the tapioca.
Yeah.
Now, of course, to market tapioca, you need to have the benefits. So what are the benefits of tapioca? Like if you really consider it, you did mention the benefits of the tapioca leaves being crushed
Yeah.
as food additives. What are the benefits of tapioca starch?
It's a very pure starch, also like potato starch, even though potato starch is even better, but it doesn't contain a lot of other content than this pure starch. So it doesn't smell, it doesn't taste, it's quite neutral, and the binding ability to hold other food products together is very high. And that's what they seek in the food industry when they make the sausages and the gravies and soups and all these things, because it gives these products the right consistency.
Okay, and I've heard the term gluten-free actually being associated with tapioca starch. What about that?
Yeah, tapioca doesn't contain gluten.
Okay, so that's really huge in the Western world, right?
Yes.
Gluten-free products, gluten-free food is huge. Now, of course, we actually talked about the benefits of cassava roots. Now, when it comes to the Gram Shakti program, it is really important that you guys provide a benefit to the community, to the economy. What type of benefit can we expect from this initiative?
Yeah, we have had extensive meetings with Mr. Shiral Lakti Lakka from the President's Advisory Team, and also Mr. Hemal Diaz from the Gram Shakti program. And together with them, we also form a cooperation with Gram Shakti that it will involve training of farmers in the cultivation, how to enhance the yields, how to do it organically and don't harm the environment. We also introduce some machinery and equipment they can use to make it more efficient, and also to put some relief on the burden of the people harvesting. Because, you know, the local harvesting technique is basically 2-3 strong guys pulling out the stem and the plant from the soil and then taking out the tubers.
Not efficient and not.
And we also, when we recruit new farmers, we provide them a startup kit, so they get some T-shirts, some caps, so they can use and just be a part of something larger. And we provide them a handbook. And in this handbook, which will be in the local language and in English as well, they get some guidelines how to cultivate cassava in the most efficient way, including what they can use of organically allowed pesticides, fertilizers. We have a regime to train them how to make good compost, how to collect manure, basically. All things they need to know to start with cassava and achieve the best results.
Will there be training workshops for all the farmers?
Yes, when we take in a new village to cultivate cassava for us, we have an introduction session to recruit them, and then we have a workshop to train them afterwards. And then they also get this equipment.
Yeah, and talking about this particular factory, how
Yeah.
much job creation will be made? And of course, directly, indirectly, I hope there will be a lot of jobs created through this initiative.
Yeah.
So can you expand on what direct impact it will have on the job market?
Yeah, for the factory itself, it will be at least 200 workers, maybe more if we are running several shifts. But then we also plan to have the nucleus plantation around the factory, and there will be at least 500-600 jobs on the factory, the plantation as well. And when you talk about the indirect job involvement with the outgrowers, we are talking around 30,000 farmers. So except of the tea industry, which is really large in Sri Lanka, it will be the largest employment in the agriculture industry.
That's a big goal in mind for you, and I think we all hope that you hit it. Of course, talking about the factory itself, you both might be really able to elaborate on this. The factory itself is state-of-the-art.
Yeah.
It's a green initiative.
Yes.
And it's self-sustaining. Elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah, for me, being an environmentalist as well as a capitalist, it's important that when we set up a large project like this, we want to minimize the impact on the environment, wildlife, and also local communities. So it's a closed system. The wastewater and the waste material is treated in a biogas plant, which produces energy that we again use to fuel the factory. And there are no emissions and no pollution from the factory. We also focus on green energy. So we have solar panels on all the different buildings. So that combined with the biogas plant almost supplies the entire energy that we need.
Yeah, and of course the initiative or the starting project will be held on October 8th. And I believe how long is the design and production process of this particular plant? When can we see it in action?
It's a total setup and rollout period of up to 24 months. So, but it's something between 18 and 24 months from basically today until everything has been set up and in full operation. And the first harvest, that takes, how much is capacity? 70% of the machinery, approximately?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that first introduction processing season, we can run on full capacity.
All right, the final question I have for the both of you. What is your vision for this particular initiative, and what do you plan for the future?
Yeah, I can reply for myself first, and then I'll leave it to Jørgen to comment as well. Yeah. For us, this is a legacy project, as this is for His Excellency and his team as well. We really want to develop the agriculture industry in Sri Lanka and make it more efficient. We want to leave a legacy behind us to see what we did in Sri Lanka. We want to provide high returns for the shareholders, and also, this is very important, to show the world from a Sri Lankan perspective, with a Sri Lankan example, that it's possible to do large-scale farming in a sustainable manner and also create win-win for all the stakeholders involved.
And Jørgen?
Yeah, I'm very interested in this project because it's a sustainable project, and producing organic starch, I think it's the future. We cannot go on anymore and just put fertilizer, artificial fertilizer, and poison the globe. We have to take care of the globe, and this is one step in the right direction. And I'm very proud to become a partner of this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Andreas Wilk and Mr. Jørgen Larsen, for joining us. It was a very special discussion. I think a lot of us learned a lot about cassava industry, something that is in Sri Lanka, and about this particular initiative. And with that, we will wind up this special discussion. I hope you learned a lot about the cassava industry, and you can actually keep an eye on this particular initiative with the opportunities and benefits it provides. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.